Welcome to the Happiness Podcast. I'm Dr. Robert Puff. When I was in high school, one morning before I woke up, I had a knife stuck in my stomach, or at least it felt like it. It was horrible, and it was so much pain. And it did subside, but then a couple of days again, it came back again when I was sleeping, like someone stuck a knife in my stomach. I had no idea what was going on, so I thought I better make a doctor's appointment and see if he or she had any ideas. Well, when I got to the doctor, he started asking me some questions. Now, this may sound obvious, but the questions he asked were about my life, and he didn't ask any questions about the people in my life. He just asked what was going on in my life. So I told him I was a high school student, and I was taking an extra heavy load because I wanted to finish high school early, and I also had a full-time job where I was working about 35 to 40 hours a week at the same time. And so he asked me, well, do you drink a lot of coffee to stay awake? I said, no. He said, are you under a lot of stress? I said, yeah, but it was manageable. And then he said, do you happen to drink soda? And I smiled and I said, yep, every day, lots of it. He said, well, you have an ulcer that's caused probably by the stress in your life and drinking that much soda. So I would suggest that you stop drinking the soda and reduce the stress in your life. That's what he told me to do, and thankfully his advice worked. It took a while, but slowly I stopped waking up in the middle of the night feeling that a knife was being stuck in my stomach. Well, now I'm going to share something that's going to seem incredibly ludicrous, but hang in there. There's a reason I'm sharing this very silly story. Could you imagine if I've gone to the doctor and asked him, hey doc, what can I do to fix my teachers at school that are giving me so much work? Can you give me a pill to give to them? Or, hey doc, can you give me something for my work and my boss because he's scheduling all these hours and it's overwhelming me? A pill that I can give to him or something you can diagnose for him? I mean, that would be crazy, but could you imagine me asking that? That would be even crazier. So the question is, when we go to the doctor, we don't go there to have him or her fix other people in our lives. We have them help us to fix us. And we do this not because other people can cause us or can't cause us stress. They do sometimes, a lot of stress. The issue is, what are we in control of? We're in control of ourselves. So when we go to the doctor, he or she prescribes things to get us better, not the people that are causing us suffering. Now here's the thing that might surprise you. When it comes to psychological stress, it's the same issue. We can't very easily control other people's behavior. If at all, we can set up boundaries, but that's about it. We can't change who they are. But what we can do is change who we are. That's what we're in control of. So when we have struggles, we have a tendency to want to blame others or the situation. And in a sense, when we go to the doctor, the psychological doctor, the people that help us with our emotional things, we want them to fix the other person far more than we want to fix ourselves. Which, again, if you think about it, is silly. Because truly what we're in control of is our response and how we are reacting to the situation at hand. And since that's what we're in control of, that's what we focus on. We don't focus on things that we're not in control of. And there's a lot of things externally that we're not in control of. But thankfully, when our hearts are hurting, there's a lot of things that we can do to improve our hearts. And that's our focus. What can we do to change? If we focus on spending our entire time complaining about what the other people are doing, I mean, it may have some cathartic effect, but mostly it's wasted energy. What can we do to change our hearts? That's what we focus on. Because that's what we're in control over. When we think we can control other people or just complain about them and stop focusing in on our behavior, then nothing's going to change. Instead, when we focus on what can I do to make my life better, that's what we're in control over. Let me use an example to help with this. Over the years as a clinical psychologist, I've helped countless couples improve their marriages. But here's what almost always happens when they first come in. They'll talk about what the other person is doing badly, what's wrong with the other person, and they want me to fix the other person. Each of them do often. If you fix the other person, then I'll be happy. Well, here's what I tell them, and a lot of times it isn't received well. I say, imagine if all your energy went towards being the best husband or wife that you could be, that's your focus, not on what the other person is doing, but on doing your part really well. Being loving, being kind, being gentle, being generous, being giving, being sacrificial, all the things that you value as a spouse. Focus on what you do and do it really well. And there's a lot of benefits to focusing just on our behavior when we're in a romantic relationship. Here are some of them. 1, then we can look in the mirror, metaphorically, and like who we are. We can say, I'm a really good partner. Who's ever with me, like my spouse, is very lucky to have me. I know that may sound a little arrogant, but there'll be a sense of, I'm doing this well, and I'm glad of that, because that's what I'm in control of. I can be a really good partner to my spouse. And then, when we're doing a really good job on our part, we can assess how our partner's doing. How do they do being in a relationship with someone like me who's loving and kind and giving and supportive? Do I like their behavior? Now, I can't change who they are in response to the way I am, but what I can do is decide, I'm doing a really good job, and they're still lashing out at me, attacking me, doing things that I feel are cruel. So, given that I've done my part, I think it's time for me to remove myself from these situations where they are acting poorly. And a lot of times it's just that. In the situations that arise where other people are acting poorly, we do our best to remove ourselves if we can. Or if we can't, we don't engage with that poor behavior. We just get quiet until it passes. I know this is hard to do, but it's what we're in control of. And the great thing about it is, if we focus on what we're in control of, then we can more easily decide what we want to do with the externals, because we really can't control them. They may respond differently to the way we respond, of course, but however they respond, when we've done our part really well, then we know that the choice we make in response to what they're doing is going to be a good one. Because the trick is, what people do is when they don't respond well, when a relationship ends or it has problems, they do ultimately focus on what they did wrong. And that's often why they stay in dysfunctional relationships. So the key here is focusing in on our behavior. We really can't control other people's behavior. And then there's so many circumstances of life, like how much money we make, where we live, our educational background, our parents. There's just so many things out of our control. But what we can control is our response to these things. So that's what we focus on. For example, let's say we're struggling financially. We don't make enough. We can ask ourselves, are there people on the planet that make less than I do that are happy? And I don't care how little you make, there are people that make less than you, particularly in the Western world, make a lot less than we do, and they're incredibly happy. So it can't be about the money, that I don't have enough money, that I'm unhappy. What is it that's making me unhappy? It's my attachment. It's wishing the external world were different. Instead, I could say, this is what I have today. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to enjoy what I can with what I have and get outdoors into nature and focus on my relationships and my friendships. And that will be my focus. I may wish I had more, and maybe I'll work towards creating more. But mostly, I'm going to focus on being happy now with what I have. So much of happiness is based on acceptance, flowing with what is, stop wishing things were different, and stop wanting to change other people. We just focus on what can we change. That's what we focus on. And mostly, it's changing the way we see things. We struggle because we see things in a certain light. I use this example often, but it's a true one. When I drive, and I live in Southern California, where there's a lot of cars, I really enjoy driving, and mostly it's very pleasant, and I very seldom see rude drivers. Now, I know they exist because when other people ride with me, they'll say, "Did you see that person? They were so rude." And I actually didn't think about it. I mean, I may have noticed that they drove quickly or cut in, but I thought, well, they must be in a hurry. I don't care. I'm just driving and taking my time. It doesn't matter what they do. I'll stop if I need to quickly to be safe, but I'll do that anyways. I'm not going to think about what they're doing. I think about me enjoying driving. But other people get all riled up. I mean, they can have high blood pressure because they're so stressed out over the other way people drive in Southern California. No joke. So the key of it is, what am I in control over? And is there anyone on the planet that is in the exact same situation that I'm in and doing it well? And of course there are people doing exceptionally well in the exact same situation that we are in. So getting back to my original story about going to the doctor, when we metaphorically seek help, either externally by talking to people or internally by listening to this podcast or things like this, where we're trying to learn about how to get better, our focus isn't on other people. Our focus is on our thoughts. We say, okay, what am I thinking that is causing me this distress? And how can I see it differently? Or what changes can I make in my life to experience it differently? What we need to do is stop focusing on what other people are doing. We can focus on how we respond differently to it, how we set up boundaries to what they're doing, but not on changing them. It is very difficult to change other people. And often the things in our life that we want differently are very difficult to change too. So instead of always wanting things different, what instead if we were to say, okay, life, this is what I have, and these are the things you've given me. How do I make this work? That's really what we focus on. How do we make this work? Now, sometimes with other people, that may be setting up some strict boundaries. We may leave the relationship. We may talk to them about what they're doing that's hurting us. We may remove ourselves from the situation. But mostly, it's about working with our hearts and saying, okay, what am I thinking here? How am I causing myself distress? Because that's what I can focus on. What can I do to make this situation better for me? It's about focusing in on us and our thoughts. That's what we focus on, because truly the solution to problems is going to be that. What can we do differently? We may make external changes. We may, of course. But our focus is always going to be on, how am I going to change in the way I see this? How do I make this better for me? That's what this happiness podcast is all about. Fixing our hearts and making our hearts better. Not changing the world or changing other people. I mean, we can. I mean, actually, if you think about it, this podcast is about changing other people. But I can't make you listen to this podcast, or even if you listen to it, apply the principles here. I can teach them, but it's up to you to implement them. And it's like that with life. We focus on what we're in control over. And what we're in control over is ourselves. So that's what we focus on. When there are struggles, we take a deep pause and we say, what can I change within me that can make this situation better for me? Instead of, if the situation were different, I'd be happy. We have to stop doing that. That's the path of suffering. Mind you, we may make changes and we may continue to make changes, but our focus is on, what can I do right now to make my heart happy, even given this situation? And then that's what we focus on. And what we'll find is, when we focus on ourselves instead of changing other people, we'll find that we do begin to change. And happiness, instead of being something elusive, happiness becomes part of who we are. And we discover throughout the day, we just have more and more pockets of beautiful life experiences where joy is there regardless of what's going on in our lives. And we discover that happiness has always been there. We were just looking in the wrong places. Thank you for joining me on the Happiness Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast, please go to happinesspodcast.org. And until next time, accept what is, love what is.